I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes.
That was the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and we need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
We are live for the first time on Slow Motion Broadcasting with the FF Weekend Warriors. We're at Sebring this weekend. It's going to be a blast. I saw a little bit of rain here in the practice session, but we'll get to that here in 1 second. My name is Adam Thompson. I'm joined in the booth by Randall McGrew.
With these three going right at it, we see you're getting really, really squirrely. There,
Oh, no!
Some contact. Oh, no. Jurg and Antonio, the two Masters leaders, both with issues and now dropping down the order.
There's a dicing through the curbs. Our lead two. As that's Instaman just slossing it up the inside through McIntyre there. Beautifully done by the Icelandic driver as there's a big incident happened behind somewhere. Gonzaga losing a lot of places back.
Almost touching at that point. They're around there heading into the closing stages of the track. Not quite there yet. Heading through what I'm calling the horseshoe, but let's not get into my drawing skills at this point. Nothing but clear track ahead of them at this point, so no one should be able to interfere in that battle. Side by side, nearly had contact there. That's going to put Kabanka on the inside for this next hairpin. This could be what decides it, and he's gone right on the outside, actually trying to cover off the car. I do wonder if Barry is going to be close enough to potentially slipstream. They've got 2 corners left to go. This penultimate one now. Barry right up close, 0.3 of a second. I'm not sure it's going to be close enough, 0.2 of a second. He's got to keep his foot on that loud pedal. Catches a little bit of a curve, but has Kabanka done it? Barry going to the inside, and Kabanka gets it.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 2 of the season, coming to you today from Barber Motorsports Park. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Daniel Zippy Salmon. Off the back of a fantastic race we had 1 week ago at Navarro, we head to one of the most characterful tracks in the world of American motorsports. From a fast-flowing layout to a whole lot of elevation change, and even an occasional scantily dressed mannequin falling from a bridge, this track is absolutely fantastic. Daniel, I hope you've seen some races here, whether it be IndyCar or some of the old sports car racing that happened many, many moons ago around this track. It's a hoot, and I'm sure the Formula Fords are going to put on a great show here this afternoon.
Well, the Weekend Warriors definitely do not disappoint there, Ron. But let's see if we can find one of these cars for an onboard lap. Just bear with me here. Let's have a quick look and see if I can get one of these guys just ideally going over the start finish. Now, I will confess I'm not 100% familiar with this track, but it does remind me of my local track of Atlantic Motorsport Park. But it looks like James Barry, he's going to be your guy to commentate the lap on as I get things all set up for you.
And what a great driver to pick as well, the reigning Spec 1 champion off the back of a victory 1 week ago at Navarro to kick this season 4 of 2024 off. And to kick off this lap, we go down the start-finish straightaway. A little bit of a crest that you have to deal with under heavy braking into turn number 1. The road falls away from you. Then you go back up the hill into turn number 2 and 3. The very long, feels like it never ends, right-hander sweeper going up the hill, then down the hill, then back up the hill. This feels like a whole lot of elevation gain going over the kink at turn number number 4. Really tricky to try and keep the car going in a straight line there, with the rear end getting a little bit light. And speaking of getting light, you head to the hairpin at turn number 5. A really good overtaking opportunity both in real life and in the sim. Really tricky to try and get right as well. Then you're going back up the hill down the small little flat out blast between turns 5 and turn number 7. The downhill chicane with the kink of turn number 6 way back there being the 6th corner around this lap. Then you head through the chicane. Over there is the museum around this fantastic edifice in the world of American motorsports. Turn 7, 8, and 9. Really tricky corner to try and get right. You will be in for a world of hurt if you get that wrong, especially on the first lap of this race. Then you head through the quick left and right, the chicane of turn number 10 and 11. Small little flat out blast again before you have to get on the brakes and head downhill, then uphill, then back downhill through turn number 12. They don't count this as a corner. That should be turn number 13. At least the iRacing track map doesn't label as anything. Then you head back downhill through turn number 14. Then you have to turn, but also get on the brakes. Heading into turn 15. This is a pit entry that we will have to worry about in the 40 minutes of racing action that we have for you tonight here on SMB. It looks like Barry very confident in his qualifying time. He's currently on the provisional pole with only 2 minutes left on the board at a 1:30.846. He's currently in front of Jörg Mani, the Masters driver, who's always a standout star in this series, off the back of a Masters victory 1 week ago at Navarro, where he finished P6 overall. Yanqi Lin currently in 3rd, Jason Green in 4th, McConnell in 5th, Tufts in P6, and Joshua Wilkie, our colleague here at SMB, always rips it in these Weekend Warriors series. He's currently qualified top of the S2 drivers, currently qualified P7 overall, but as this qualifying session slowly draws to a close, Daniel, I think this field is just oh so close. And look at Love there a little bit farther back, pretty much tied with Adrian right towards the tail end of the top 10.
Well, that is definitely fantastic to see a little bit of a dead heat here happening in qualifying. And definitely this track does remind me a little bit of Atlantic Motorsport Park. Certainly the curvature, the elevation change. And the Weekend Warriors are certainly going to deliver for the racing action. I mean, we've seen absolutely fantastic results so far. I mean, race finishes split by just thousandths of a second, ladies and gentlemen. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this one goes. Barber Motorsport Park, it does have a little bit of whip to it at the track, but in terms of passing opportunities, Ron, it's going to be interesting to see what these guys can develop out of the Formula 1600.
I have a feeling it could be very similar to the kind of racing that we saw just 1 week ago at Navarro. One of the newer tracks added into iRacing, designed for motorcycles, and recently had a pretty significant reconfiguration, so the version in iRacing isn't even the same that's being used in real life. But the point still remains that that track is pretty hard to overtake at, Barber being no exception. You got some good overtaking opportunities, though, and I'm sure the drivers, the gutsy drivers here in the Weekend Warriors series, will definitely try and go for the move if they feel that they have any sort of opportunity to try and get that done. But Yanqi Lin shooting up to the provisional pole at a 1:30.790. That is a stormer of a lap from the driver of the number 30 car, and a nice drift heading through turn number 2 to celebrate as well. That's going to displace James Berry off the back of a victory just 1 week ago. And I think, speaking of the season that we've had thus far, before we come to a close in this qualifying session, we'll take a look at the championship points. Not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the championship points. We'll start off with Spec 1, the premier class here from all of the Weekend Warriors series. James Berry at the front, Ian Joyner, another Brit, right behind him, P2. Those drivers finished P1 and P2 respectively 1 week ago at Navarro. I don't believe Joyner is racing with us this evening. Of course, James Berry is a very fast driver week in and week out, and Yanqi Lin, who looks to try and snag the pole, going to finish out 3rd in the Spec 2 standings with only 1 week on the board. Moving over to Spec 2, Josh Wilkie is at the front there. Andrew Love in 2nd, Morton Human in 3rd, Bill Walker in 4th, and Dana Bose rounding out your top 5 in the Spec 2 category. Then moving over to the Masters category, it's Jörg Mani, the Swiss driver, at the front in the 925 car, 78 points on the board in front of Antonio Reese in 2nd, Jim Brewster 3rd, Brad Cathcart in 4th, and Gary Wobold rounding out your top 5. And those are all the classes that we have. Have a small little technical issue at the moment, so hopefully we'll be able to get things sorted from that side of things. So a little bit of time left until this qualifying session is underway. The points battles that we have already, lots of fantastic drivers that we have. That Spec 1 class always intrigues me because, as some of you may be aware, if you've tuned into Weekend Warriors broadcasts in the past, I have experience covering both this series and the Formula Fords along with the Formula Vs that you can all catch exclusively here on SMB. And I've experienced commentating the drivers that run in that Spec 1 class. James Berry, I've been commentating at this point for probably over a year at this point. He is incredibly fast. Very nice gentleman as well, and he always impresses ever since he joined this series just one season ago. And he has another driver that I've been able to commentate and also race alongside, Jorge Gonzaga, who's currently 9th in this qualifying session. But James Berry, a fast driver. Yanchi Lin, a fast driver. But he also got those Masters driver, Jörg Mani, who's currently 3rd in this qualifying session. He always tends to throw a little bit of a wrench in the works when it comes to these races. He is a stormingly fast driver, and we're going to see him play a big role in these races. But with this qualifying session slowly drawing to a close, I think we're going to get the pace lap started in just a couple of moments' time. There you can see the pace car already on that start-finish line. One pace lap to get things sorted out and get these technical issues sorted out. Of course, it's a bane of a broadcaster's existence, technical issues. Gotta love it. I remember the first ever broadcast I did was had a small little bit of a technical issue. I couldn't see what was going on, so nowadays that's not much of a problem here on SMB. But we can take a look at the starting grid, and it's going to be Yanchi Lin grabbing the pole, the number 30 car. James Berry going to join him on the front row. Jörg Mani, the Masters driver, going to be starting this race in 3rd. Top of the Masters drivers, Daniel Tufts going to be joining him on the 2nd row. Jason Green, a very quick driver in the Weekend Warriors world, going to be starting this race in P5. Michael McConnell going to be starting this race in 6th. James McRitchie going to be starting this race in P7. Our very own Josh Wilkie in 8th. Jorge Gonzaga in 9th. And Kevin Adrian going to round out your top 10.
As we have a look at 11th place, we've got Andrew Love there in the S2. Stevie Ray makes his way up to 12th. As we have a look at 13th, we've got Trenton Kramer. Now, that guy legitimately drives race cars. I do believe he's the gentleman who was pick room for Megan Overstreet there. He's in 13th with Matthew Merciez alongside in 14th. Bill Walker takes 15th with Dana Bales, the Canadian driver, in 16th. Joshua Justice, he's there in 17th with Jim Brewster, the master himself, there in 18th with Jeff Jacobson in 19th and Phil Tuller in 20th.
And looking through the rest of the field, we've got Brad Cathcart, the Australian, in 21st. Russell Telker in 22nd. Carlos Navarro, who's been very generous to sponsor this broadcast. We'll talk about that in just a couple of moments' time. He's going to be starting this race in 23rd. And Christopher Kane going to be starting this race in P24. And rounding out your grid, it's going to be Jason Grider and Nick Tulo, 26 starters that we have in this race. A packed field for the 2nd race of the season. It should be known that Nick Tulo and Matthew Mercedes did not take to the starting grid, so I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll touch on that storyline in just a couple of moments' time. But as I pointed out, when going through the starting grid, Carlos Navarro has sponsored this broadcast, making this broadcast possible here on SMB. And I gotta tell you what, Daniel, it's been very nice to see the Weekend Warriors community. Very happy to be a part of it. Very happy to have been a part of it in the past. Have some very generous drivers, and of course, Carlos making this broadcast possible. We'd like to thank Carlos, the driver of the 236 car for Frog Watts Racers. That's a very interesting name, if I do say so myself. He'll be starting a little bit farther down the pack. However, we are definitely going to be keeping our eyes on him throughout the rest of this race. But with a whole pace lap left to go, Daniel, I'm going to ask you some questions before we get this race underway. What are you expecting this race to be like?
I think it's going to be a very, very tight race indeed. These guys consistently deliver, and the racing is always very, very close. I think Wanji and Barry at the front are going to have a hell of a battle. Manny, it'll be interesting to see as well, because I don't see Antonio Reese here today, so this could be a good point-scoring opportunity for Jörg Manny. He just has to keep it clean and stay out of the rough on this occasion.
And lots of the drivers that you see in this Formula Ford Weekend Warriors Series also race in the Formula V Weekend Warriors Series that you can catch every single Saturday on SMB. And they also race in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, which will be broadcasted later on this afternoon. One more question, I think, before we get things ready to rock and roll from this race, is what is the run through turn 1 going to be like? I have seen many races here in real life where turn 1 usually ends in a driver crying by the side of the road. I'm curious if these drivers are going to be able to negotiate lap 1 with their cars still intact. You think turn 1 is probably going to be the big trouble spot today, Daniel?
Turn 1 always tends to be quite hot, and looking at that, you know what? It's a left-hander going down into a long sweeping right. I think the turn 1 is going to be okay. I can see the long sweeping right-hander. I can see that being a bit more of an interesting scenario, but we're certainly going to be seeing it as again going to go around the final corner now. Such a huge grid as well today. Let's actually have a quick count of how many cars do we have. I'm counting 24 cars certainly on the track right now, with potentially 26 in the session, as it looks like they're getting ready to go green.
The green flags that. The drivers are on their way. Looks like a pretty even kill start between most of our front runners, but Yanqi Lin going to have a good lead heading off into turn number 1. Meanwhile, Barry and Monty behind, starting to battle those two running in the final podium positions overall, with Monty being the leader in the Masters category, looking to try and continue his clean streak of races thus far and go 2 for 2 from the opening races of this Formula Ford Weekend Warriors season. Or we have some drivers coming down pit lane, may have had some connection issues to deal with at the very start of this race, as we ride on board with Daniel Tufts, the driver in the number 34 car, heading his way off into turn number 5. He's gotten off to a pretty good start right now. Meanwhile, some drivers battling a little bit farther in the back. I think there may have been an incident possibly involving Dana Bose, Jim Brewster, and Russ Telker, possibly Bill Walker involved in that as well. That was heading, I believe, through turn number 5. You can see the field broken up already, so I think there may have been some drama happening a little bit farther behind. We're going to try and find the replays to see exactly what went wrong with Jim Brewster, who's involved in a fantastic photo finish just one day ago here on SMB with the Formula V Weekend Warriors. Came oh so close to winning that race compared to Thor Tulo, who ended up taking the checker flag when everything is said and done. But as you can see, the field crawling their way up into turn number 4. Not sure what happened to Brewster. Of course, the mid-packs in these races, especially in Formula 4s with open wheels, it can end in some pretty bad incidents. I think Brewster may have gone bit by the chrome horn. It was hanging through turn number 5, unless I'm very much mistaken where that incident happened. So we'll see Brewster head his way off into the corner. Should be noted that in this race currently, it's still Yanqi Lin, James Berry, and York Monty occupying the final podium positions, well, the only podium positions in this race. As they head off into turn number 5, you can see Brewster carrying a whole lot of speed, running into the back of the car in front. That doesn't really hurt them too much. Instead, it's going to hurt Brewster, who goes for a spin, and you can see the 27 gang involved in that. Some contact as well with another spinning. You can see Jeff Jacobson in the number 40 car involved in the midst of all that. A little bit of aerial acrobatics that must be noted as well. So a little bit of bumper cars action hang through turn 5.
Well, that definitely is not what they had in mind, as we're going to regain back to the action here. Definitely a few. It's still very much a learning process for me here in the broadcast booth, and I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but you know what? It is a work in progress as we go back on board with Jörg Manny, who's currently under some very heavy pressure from Daniel Tufts right behind him. That gap, just 0.3 of a second, as Yanqi Lin, he's having a battle with James Barry as well. Actually battles throughout the field as it stands right now.
Yeah, the field is so incredibly close at this point, from Lin leading it, heading his way off into turn number 12 right now, all the way back. Pretty much the entirety of the field covered by probably about a half a mile on this racetrack. I'm sure that's definitely going to spread out because we do have some pit stops to deal with as well. But at the moment, we've still got a close field, and it's a close battle that we got between Monty and Tufts right now. They're hanging their way through turn number 15 and 16 to round off the second lap of this race. It's still Yanqi Lin at the front, Barry in P2, Monty and Tufts battling for that final podium position. They've actually extended a pretty big gap between themselves and Jason Green, who's occupying the final top 5 spot at the moment. He's got a fight on his hands between himself and McConnell, so we could see those two start to battle in the not too distant future, with our very own Josh Wilkie involved in that, who's still leading in the Spec 2 category. But as it stands at the moment, close battles up and down the field, and close lap times as well between Yanqi Lin and Barry. Those two both in the 131.8 territory, but side by side heading off into turn number 5 between Monty and Tufts. Like Monty's going to hold off the challenge for now.
That was incredibly close racing there, and that is an absolute testament to these guys. You certainly got to have trust with the drivers you're racing with, as Daniel Tufts right up on the back of the master there, Jörg Manny, trying everything he can to get by. You can see there, everything he can. So close, but just not quite able to get it done.
All these drivers at this point, they're racing to their heart's content. They're certainly pushing these cars to the absolute limit of adhesion. Great to see in these Weekend Warriors races. These drivers just battling tooth and nail, trying to scrap and claw for every single position they can. But Monty and Tufts still covered by barely an ear. Tufts trying to get that inside line, heading into turn number 12. That would have been a bold and audacious move if he made it stick, but he had to be a little bit more patient. Now side by side, heading off into turn number 14. A nice drift from Daniel Tufts behind the wheel of the number 34 car. Still in the inside line of Monty. They single file out, heading through the final corner of turn number 16. But Daniel Tufts absolutely wheeling it. Tough stuff from Tufts in the 34 car. And they're still side by side going down the start-finish straightaway. Yanchi Lin still leading this race, and contact being made into turn number 1. Monty getting some aerial acrobatics done. He is very lucky to keep that car going in a straight line. However, with that significant whack that he just had, I think there may be a little bit of damage on that race car of Monty. Now dropping down to 8th. He may be at risk of losing the lead in the Masters category, but we're going to take a look at the replay to see what happens between Monty and Tufts. I have a feeling that Tufts may have thought that he had cleared him. Yeah, you can see a little bit of overlap between the two of them heading off into the braking zone of turn number 1. I don't think Jörg Monty is going to be happy in the least bit about how Tufts raced him. Just close stuff at ends in tears.
Well, definitely a very, very close fight going on, but it looks like Joshua Wilkie, he's got his work cut out as well. He's currently in the middle of a pack. That's Jason Green ahead of him, Michael McConnell and Kevin Adrian behind, and then they've got about a second gap between themselves and Jörg Manny, which, I've got to be honest, if Jörg Manny has a clean car still, he will be able to catch up, but certainly the SMB producer and new commentator here, that's Joshua Wilkie. He's doing very well so far, managed to keep hold of that S2 lead.
Josh Wilkie playing all 3 roles in this Weekend Warriors world, behind the microphone, behind the production mixer, and also behind the wheel as well. And you can catch him later on today on the Spec Racer for Weekend Warriors as well. But Josh Wilkie at this point wheeling that 223 car, currently running in 5th at the moment, as a spin a little bit farther on the back for Trent Kramer. He's gone around in the number 20 car. That was heading through turn number 15. Saw a big puff of smoke as he ran wide and went off the circuit. He's now careening his way down the running order. Not sure exactly what happened for Trent Kramer in that number 20 car. Gonna hopefully try and find a replay. The driver of the number 20 car now falling outside the top 20. You can see him. This was a little bit farther back. That was heading through turn number 12 and 13. You can see him right behind. I believe that's Jorge Gonzaga in the 183 car. He's right behind, heading through that fast section. You can see these cars sliding their way through the corners. A little bit of kick-out action behind the wheel. These Formula Ford Weekend Warriors race cars. I think it may have been possibly a little bit of contact as we're still running aboard with Kramer in the number 20 car, heading downhill through turn number 14. Oh boy, heading through turn number 14 just a couple of moments time. Not sure what in the world happened there. I think I don't know, maybe we need to call an exorcist when everything is said and done from this broadcast. But Kramer going side by side and through 14 now, about to head into turn number 14, the scene of the incident. You can see the side-by-side action involving Josh Wilkie, and I believe that was Jason Green a little bit farther up the road. Kramer was mega sideways. You can see that car drifting, heading into the corner. That's such a tricky corner to try and get right, because you've got the elevation change, and you also need to slow the car down while heading through a corner. So Kramer with a big spin, a big smoke show, heading through turn number 15. That's going to drop him down the running order. Meanwhile, going back to the live action, Wilkie's still running in 5th, right behind Jason Green, who's now running in P4, 2.5 seconds back of Daniel Tufts. Tufts has lost a whole lot of time to the back of Yanchi Lin and Barry, who are still at the front. Barry currently holds the fastest lap of the race, and last time by, those two were only separated by 0.003 of a second lap time-wise. Yanchi Lin and Barry at the front end of this field. It is very much a battle of giants at the front.
Well, as we have a look a bit further away through the field, we've got Joshua Wilkie currently trying to have a little bit of sparring battle there with Jason Green in the 160 Sisu machine, and it looks like he's going to make it up on the inside. And yes, that's Wilkie sending it up the inside. Jason Green having a little bit of correction, and it looks like there was another pass further back through there as well. McConnell getting involved, Kevin Adrian as well. This battle getting spicier and spicier as it's now a 5-car battle. Jörg Manny looks like he has joined the party, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, Monty's gotten involved in that. He is the tail car in this 5-car fight, but Wilkie, Green, McConnell, Adrian, and Monty covered by barely any air. And if they start to battle a little bit, we could see the likes of Jorge Gonzaga in that 183 car get involved in this fight. Not very quick lap time-wise, so we'll see. He may have some luck at the green to try and get involved in this fight. But as we ride on board with Michael McConnell in the number 62 car, he is in the midst of this hornet's nest of Formula Fords, heading his way through turn number 12 right now. Maybe got to size up a move on green in the not-too-distant future, because you've got the racy driver, the number 10 car, that's Kevin Adrian right behind, looking to try and get a move done in the not-too-distant future. Last time by, actually, no, that's a best lap of the race. Best time by, it should be said. Kevin Adrian a little bit quicker than McConnell. Monty, meanwhile, even with possibly a little bit of damage on that 925 car, he is still going to be chomping at the bits to try and get a move done and slip his way up a little bit farther up the road He's got the time advantage to him and Stevie Ray, series admin Stevie Ray, currently running in the 10th position, a little bit farther back of this man, Yorick Monty, who's leading in the Masters category. There's Stevie in the 911 Ray Esports car, and you can catch him on the Ray Esports YouTube channel for the racing line, with their old pal Adam Thompson being one of the hosts of that podcast every single Tuesday night. But right now we got a fight between Adrian trying to go for a defensive line on Monty, heading off into turn number 5. Wilkie, meanwhile, running wide. They're going to be side by side with himself and Green. That's going to be a good fight. Meanwhile, Adrian going side by side with Monty. Those two going side by side. Monty going to be able to clear. Meanwhile, Green and Wilkie side by side, heading off into 7, 8, and 9. Wilkie got that inside line, running on the adhesion of grip. That's not a good phrase right there, but Wilkie at the limit of control, heading off into the chicane, gets the move done to slip his way up into 4th.
Well, it's definitely a very, very hard battle going on in the mid-pack right now. I say the mid-pack. It's not even mid-pack right now. So Wilkie is about 3 seconds back off of the podium right now. Now, the question is, if these guys keep fighting, that podium is going to get further and further away. But, you know, you got to weigh up the pros and cons. Wilkie's currently leading S2. The nearest S2 driver to him is back in 13th place. That's Carlos Navarro. That's our sponsor for this week. Thank you again very much there, Carlos. And you know what? It's very much looking good for Wilkie. He's just got to, you know, weigh up the risk versus reward. But don't get me wrong, we have the points to think about as well. These guys are not scored points on class. They are scored on overall position. As you see there, Jason Green right behind in that 160 machine as Wilkie dips a wheel in the grass, using as much of the track as he can here at Barber Motorsports Park.
It's a mouthful, I will say that is for darn sure. It rolls off the tongue like 80 grit sandpaper, but nevertheless, Josh Wilkie still running in 4th, and Carlos Navarro should be known that he is a hard charger at the moment, making his way up 10 spots. Meanwhile, driver making up one more spot is Monty. Just got the move done on McConnell, heading off down into turn number 5. Well done from McConnell. Meanwhile, we have a change of P2 in the Spec 2 category, may pulled off a commentator's jinx, as Navarro just lost out on P13 overall and P2 in the Spec 2 category to Andrew Love behind the wheel of the 544 car. So those two just had a swap of positions. Navarro now still the hard charger, up 8 spots when everything is said and done at the moment. And we're still going to see him maybe make his way up the field a little bit more. Of course, we have some pit stops to deal with. We are entering that pit window, as that may have been a little bit of drama heading off through the turn 7A and 9 chicane. See Brad Cathcart in the midst of that in the 905 car. I think Bill Walker, the Spec 2 driver in the 319, may have gotten a piece of that as well. Not sure what in the world happened, but a smoke show heading down to the chicane.
Well, there's definitely battles happening throughout the field, but right now the spiciest action is up here, the battle for 4th place, and right now Wilkie is leading that battle with Jason Green right behind. Jörg Manny, he's already managed to clear McConnell in the 62 and Kevin Adrian in that number 10, but not yet able to make his way back through the field and recover from that earlier mistake. He's going to be trying everything he can, because again, as we were saying very shortly ago, it is overall points, ladies and gentlemen. So despite the fact his nearest competition is Stevie Ray, who is definitely a little bit further back in 14th, 15th place, I do wonder. No, Stevie Ray's gone in the pits, ladies and gentlemen. Gone for the early pit stop.
Along with Bill Walker, and I believe Dana Bose has also come down pit lane, along with Grider. Bill Walker, I think, may have just left the session, possibly. So maybe a little bit of an incident involving Walker. Not sure what happened there. Maybe a small little issue, possibly. But nevertheless, Stevie, usually in these races, he's the first one to come down pit lane. Always going to try the off-the-wall bonkers strategy. So Stevie coming down pit lane right now. He's going to be exiting out at P16. Lots of the drivers that are behind him now have already come in for their one and only stop in this race. It is both mandatory by the rules and mandatory just to be able to see the checkered flag, need enough gas and need enough tires and need enough of a break in these races, considering how close this pack still is. You want to find any sort of opportunity that you can to just take a little bit of a breather. One thing that Josh Wilkie certainly has not been able to have so far in this race. It's 0.4 of a second, 0.3 of a second back to Jason Green in 5th. Then Monty's right behind, McConnell's behind him, and Adrian is behind as well. It is still a big train of Formula Fords right towards the north end of this field for the drivers running in P4, P5, P6, P7, and P8. Another driver that's been feeling pressure ever since the very start is our race leader behind the wheel of the number 30 car. That is Yanshi Lin. Still has a small little gap between himself and Barry. The gap hasn't really come down, it must be said, even with some lap traffic playing a role in this race very early on. That gap still remaining about the same. What we could be seeing from Barry is what we saw just 1 week ago at Navarro for the opening race of this season. he was locked steady in a very close fight between himself and Ian Joyner. Did have the advantage pace-wise and wasn't able to get the move done. However, what he decided to do was to just save fuel, and it ended up giving James Berry the victory when everything is said and done. We've got a fight right now between Adrian and Gonzaga. I think Adrian lost out a little bit of time hanging through the opening sector of this lap.
Well, these guys have definitely dropped back off that battle there for the 4th position, and they are having a fight in their own right now, constantly swapping positions neck and neck. As, oh no, who's that gone off at the side? We'll have to have a look. Let me find the right button. Right, but that's Jason Grider we just saw over at the side. So, okay, that's just a little bit of lap traffic there. The battle still continues for the other drivers.
And you can see a nice drift from Adrian heading through the turn number 10 and 11 chicane. Nicely held from these drivers. That's the thing with the Formula Fords. They're so much fun to drive just because you can get the ass end out heading through these corners, and it's just so much of a fun car to drive, regardless of what kind of racetrack you like to drive it around, Barber being no exception. You got a classically designed old school racetrack and a classically designed old school car. It is a fun combination. Lots of these drivers enjoying it right now. Certainly James Berry enjoying it right now. He's running in P2 still as Gonzaga.
Here we go.
Heading off into turn number 1, nearly making contact. That was a matter of inches.
Oh, I thought these guys were going to collide then. And I must say, I do like this gentleman's paint. I don't know if you can see it there, Ron, but you can see right on the top of his cowling, he's actually got his name printed there with his flag. I think that is absolutely fantastic. Very nicely done there from Jorge Gonzaga.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think James Berry may have a similar motif on his race car. These two drivers' teammates, and I've gotten plenty of experience of commentating races that they have been a part of in Radical SR10s here on iRacing. Oof. They're usually fixtures. James Berry, the reigning champion in the Radical Esports Cup on iRacing. So James Berry, a very quick driver, and a car that is so difficult to try and wheel around. But James Berry, he's feeling mightily racy, backed out of it. Yeah, I'm curious. You can maybe just follow this fight a little bit more. I think the fuel-saving theory that I had with James Berry may be ringing true as our camera just got knocked out there. May have to send a bill to Yanchi Lin, and James Berry just went in for the double kill on that camera on the inside of turn 14. But I think Berry at this point maybe trying to save a little bit of gas. Don't want to risk it though, hang it to turn 12, because even if you are trying to go just balls to the wall flat out, something like that, heading off into turn number 12 side by side can usually end in tears.
You definitely got to weigh up the risk versus reward, and right now Yanchi is basically cutting a nice big Formula 1600 shape air into the track for James Berry, and James Berry is going to do everything he can to stay within that draft. He's hovering about half a second back at the minute, but don't get me wrong, I think he has the pace to pass Lin. I just think he's chosen not to, saving the fuel and trying to beat him in the long game. As we see there, more battles happening throughout the field. It looks like Jörg Manny is going, this time he's having a crack at Josh Wilkie. Now, don't get me wrong, we love both of these drivers, but it looks like Wilkie's been hung out to dry. Manny sends it deep, and Wilkie right up the back of Manny. I thought there was going to be contact there, and yet Wilkie's still under pressure as McDonald looks like he's going to be having a crack at him. McConnell, sorry.
This is going to be a good fight right now. Yes, it is. And Michael McConnell in the number 62 car. He's maybe got to try and get dicey with Wilkie. Monty, meanwhile, trying to close up that gap between himself and Jason Green. That's going to be a fight for P4 overall. And Monty trying to extend that gap in the Masters category and try and make hay while the sun's shining with his main rival, so to speak, in the Weekend Warriors world of Antonio Reese not being with us for this race. Not sure if we're going to see him for Spec Race Rewards later on today. He's usually a fixture of this series, so not sure why he has not showed up today. But Monty at this point going to try and make hay while the sun is shining and trying to extend that gap in the Masters category. And to do it so early on into the slightly extended season here. Of course, we have 13 weeks compared to the normal 12 from the Weekend Warriors series across the Formula Vs, Formula Fords, and Spec Racer Fords. This is a good fight continuing to brew between Green and Monty. Wilkie and McConnell, meanwhile, they're dropping a little bit farther back compared to Monty. However, we could see a fight between those two in the not-too-distant future. Green with a little bit of rally action coming out of turn number 1. They may be side-by-side in the not-too-distant future. We just saw one lap ago. Monty getting that move done on Wilkie to slip his way up into 5th. Now it looks like Monty's going to try and go 2 for 2, hang through turn number 5, 2 laps in a row. They're going to be side-by-side. Monty trying to be the last late breaker, heading off into the corner, and Green gonna let him by. I think that's some smart race tactics from the driver of the 160 car.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that was not a fight. That was very intentional. Jason Green looking to tuck the nose cone right behind Jörg Manny, or maybe he's just sick of that, like that lipstick clown paint job, being in his rearview mirror. I've got to say, as paint jobs go, it is a pretty intense distraction. It makes me laugh every time I see it. Yerk Manny, just the most hilarious paint I've ever seen. I've seen some really good paints, throughout my time commentating and racing and stuff like that, but that's probably the one that makes me laugh the hardest. That smiley face. Well, I don't know if it's smiley as much. It's just very unique, charismatic character on the front of that car. Let's go with that.
I'm not even sure what noise that smiley face or whatever we want to call it would make at the front of that car. I guess it would be more like a noise as it's driving around the racetrack. That's a very disturbing noise. I apologize to anyone tuning into this stream this afternoon here on SMB that may have been disturbed by that very odd noise that just escaped my mouth a few moments ago. Let's get back to the racing, if I can spit my words out here. Now over the halfway mark of this 40-man race, Yanxi Lin feeling even more pressure from James Barry, running wide coming out of turn number 3. Got a little bit of the grass. Will Barry go for the move? Now he backs out of it more. I think this fuel-saving strategy that Barry is definitely trying to employ, I think this is going to be a good call because he's still keeping Yanxi Lin honest, as we saw with Yanxi Lin doing a little bit of lawn mowing coming out of turn number 3. The driver of the number 30 car is still pushing that car to the absolute limit of adhesion. I think James Barry at this point, it's very much a game of cat and mouse, with a cat playing with a mouse before he eats it.
Well, it's even more interesting as well as you have a look at the best lap times. These guys just separated by 6,000ths of a second, incredibly close. But if you're in the number 30 car right now, I mean, how do you compound this problem? James Barry is getting all of the draft. He's keeping you honest. What can you do? I mean, you can reduce your pace and then hope he's going to make the pass, and then risk having the rest of the field catch yourselves up. I mean, he's currently got an 8-second gap between themselves and Daniel Tufts, who's currently sat back in third. I don't really know what to do in this scenario. I mean, you're going to be burning more fuel, but Yanxi Lin is actually notorious for being able to save fuel even when he is not getting the draft.
Yeah, Yanxi's usually very good when it comes to that fuel-saving strategy. I'm just curious as to whether or not he will be able to out-fuel save Barry, because as we saw just 1 week ago with this Formula Ford Weekend Warriors series, it was a matter of fuel saving that ended up deciding the fight for the overall victory, and of course a victory in the Spec 1 category. Yanxi Lin always fast in this series. He was very fast 1 week ago. Navarro overcame a spin heading off into turn number 3 during that race, and then ended up making his way up into P3, I think, when everything was said and done. So a very good show from Yanxi Lin just 1 week ago, trying to snag his first victory of this season. Barry, meanwhile, he will not be overcome. He wants to try and grab another victory from this season and try and go back-to-back with this series. Barry, very fast driver. As I said earlier, most of the time I've had commentating races that he's a part of is in the Radical SR10 on iRacing, which anyone who's driven that is not an easy car to try and wheel around a racetrack by any means. So Barry, he's got some experience in that car. He's very fast in that car, and with that car being oh so difficult to drive, probably trains him up very, very well. Could be the reason why he's joined this series and has just hit the ground running. Still has the fastest lap of the race right now, but our attention is on this fight between McConnell, who's currently running in 7th, and Josh Wilkie, who's currently running in 6th. Still the leader in the Spec 2 category. Pretty comfortable margin between himself and Andrew Love running down in 12th. But Wilkie, at this point in time, going to try and maintain that position and possibly break his way back up into the top 5 when everything is said and done.
Well, that was Russell Telker. That was the lap traffic these guys just shot by. But it does look like the battle for 4th has indeed spread out. There's now currently about a 1.3 second gap heading between Wilkie and Jason Green. Green and Manny able to pull away a little bit. So, battling, as much fun as it is, potentially not the best strategical move, but Wilkie doing everything he can. Don't get me wrong, he's leading S2 right now, which is absolutely fantastic. And, even more proud to have him as part of slow motion broadcasting. And you can see that it looks like, I do believe he may have our logo there on one of the side pods, but I admit my eyesight isn't the best. Nope, that's not our logo. We'll get him a paint sorted out, ladies and gentlemen. I think Adam Thompson may be on that. It looks like McConnell is going to try and make a move. He had a little bit of a sniff there, but I don't think it was yet able to get it done. McConnell still not able to get that move done. Now, I do wonder as well, is McConnell the furball racing machine? Is he doing the same kind of tactic as James Barry? Is he there looking to save fuel and potentially leapfrog Wilkie in the pits? Is Wilkie indeed very, very fast, which I could definitely believe, and McConnell is being pulled along at a better pace? Is McConnell using this to try and pull away from Jorge Gonzaga and potentially land himself some very secure, steady points here at Barber Motorsports Park?
I think that may be a very good strategy from McConnell. Listen closely heading into 12 to see if he lifts. Ooh, not going too much of a lift there, so I think he's still attacking the corners. Wilkie with a very interesting line. I feel like if this series was organized by the FIA, he probably would have gotten a 500-second time penalty for that interesting interpretation of track limits heading off into turn number 12. But McConnell not really saving fuel heading off into turn 12, so maybe still pushing that car just a little bit. I mean, he's got a 4-second gap between himself and Jorge Gonzaga, who's running an 8th at the moment. However, they're losing touch with the cars in front. You can see well farther up the road is a fight between Monty and Green, with Monty running in 4th and Green running as the final driver in the top 5. It's now 2.2, teetering around that 2.1, 2.2 second gap, going down a little bit, heading through 2 and 3. It's still a little bit of a cushion developing between Monty and Green, and the fight between Wilkie and McConnell behind. It was a 4-car pack not terribly long ago. However, it is definitely broken up into a 2 and 2 both. 15 minutes left to go. I think the main thing that we need to keep our eyes on for at this point is the ever-encroaching pit stops.
Well, definitely, we haven't seen too many people make their way to the pits just yet. Stevie Ray being one of them. He was one of the early pitters. And Antonio Reese, one of our masters who's sadly not here in attendance today, he is the king of the early pit stop. And don't get me wrong, he normally gets away with it. Don't ask me how he does it, but it tends to work out very, very well for him. But right now, a lot of these drivers taking a similar tactic as myself, just keep running that car as long as you possibly can. Get that car as light as possible, because while the early pit stop, keeps you out of the traffic potentially, you could then lose the draft of the car ahead of you, which is so influential in some of these, not to knock on them, but some of these lower powered machines. The draft is so influential. And then not only that, you're then carrying more weight, you're carrying more fuel for the majority of the race. I don't know how Antonio Reese does it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is a very talented driver indeed, but this is the law of physics, ladies and gentlemen. Is he that much? Is he like Doctor Strange level of talent at this point?
I think he may just have a very light foot. That could be the reason why he can get some good fuel numbers. I'll tell you what, if I had the same level of fuel mileage skill, I guess I'm trying to think what the correct technical term would be, the ability to stretch out a tank of gas as long as these drivers can in the Weekend Warriors series, I feel like I wouldn't get such appalling fuel mileage as I do in my car in real life. But nevertheless, these drivers still battling up and down the field. The field spreading out a little bit, of course, with 26 coming up to 27 minutes on the board. Not too much of a shock. However, these drivers are still close up and down the field. The fight between McConnell and Wilkie still barely any air separating the two of them. Look like they're going to try a spot of bump drafting, heading off into the 7, 8, and 9 chicane towards the middle sector of this lap at the front of the field. Meanwhile, Monty and Barry still going tit for tat when it comes to the fastest lap. Lynn, the first one to break below a 1 minute 31 barrier, going to 1 minute 30.969. So Lynn at this point starting to crank on the afterburner and trying to extend that gap between himself and Barry. I think it's a matter of time before those drivers come down pit lane. Meanwhile, looking at a fight just outside the top 10, there's a fight going on between Andrew Love, who's currently running second in the Spec 2 category, and Jeff Jacobson behind the wheel of the number 40 car. Jacobson possibly picked up a slowdown with that rally action coming out of turn number 11. That's going to drop him down a little bit. Still running in P12 with a pretty significant gap between himself and Navarro behind. Green and McConnell coming down pit lane. So those are the first drivers running solidly inside the top 10 to make the call to come into the pits. What do you make of this one, Daniel?
I think it's a very, very smart move to come into the pits, and I think Jacobson was one of those people who got caught up in that lap 1 instance. Certainly, there was a few casualties there, but it's interesting to see as well. Green and McConnell. Now, the question is McConnell now going to be set free from Wilkie? Because I mean, he's been riding behind him for quite some time. Is this going to be of his benefits? Jason Green very quick out of the box there. How far behind is McConnell going to be? Don't get me wrong. These guys were spread out enough that the gap will be influential. It looks like Brad Cathcart, he's managed to get separated. He's managed to get his nose in between the pair of them. So it's interesting to see how this is going to develop. Is Cathcart, is he going to pit soon? Is he going to be potentially traffic there for Jason Green? Looks like he's in open space right now. Yeah, both of these guys are in open space. So it'll be interesting to see what happens after the other drivers made their pit stops.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why McConnell spent as long of a time down pit lane compared to Jason Green. Jason Green was out in 13.7 seconds. McConnell, meanwhile, spent 15.6 down in his pit box. The two of them also had a pretty significant gap in terms of the time they spent down pit lane. But now our attention is on these two, Lynn, Barry. Monty coming in pit lane from the lead in the Masters category, so that's going to be a good call from Monty to come down in the pits. Wilkie going to be left all by his lonesome compared to the rest of the drivers that are running in that pack. I think they will turn into a 2-2 before those pit stops began, but with 10.5 minutes left on the clock at this point in time, these drivers definitely eyeballing the pit stops. Monty going to be stopped in his box. Let's see how long he spends down pit lane. The driver from Switzerland, always very fast in this series. Let's see what he does in terms of his time down pit lane. Still stop there. A little bit quicker than Green, it must be said. So that's actually about a second quicker between Green and Monty. I'm curious if Monty is going to be exiting out with a comfortable lead. I think Green may be right behind in tow. Can't even see him there. So that's a pretty good call from Monty. Pretty good run down pit lane, it must be said, to extend that gap between himself and Green. I was worried at first that Green may have gotten some good luck when it came to lap traffic on his ad lap, and that may have helped him out, but in the end, it's still about a 2.5 second gap between Monty and Green. Looks like Monty's going to have a comfortable run to the checkered flag once the drivers a little bit farther up the road come down pit lane, but right now the front two, Lynn and Barry staying out for another lap. I'm curious, with the fuel saving that Barry has done thus far, is he going to come in with Yanshi Lin and just have the benefit of a much quicker pit stop, or is he going to try and stretch his legs just a little bit more and maybe hold off on that pit stop for another lap or two as Tuff's running behind in third has come down, along with Wilkie?
Well, I definitely think it's an interesting tactic. Like, do you want to try and race in the pit lane? You know, it could end very badly. It's not like you can get two cars out of the pits necessarily at the same time. Don't get me wrong, it certainly makes for an exciting race. As you see Wilkie, be interesting to see where he re-emerges as well. He was doing very well in that pack further down the field, and it's going to be very, very curious indeed. Now, who have we got to keep an eye on for that one? That would be McConnell, actually. McConnell would be the biggest threat that Wilkie had. As you see there, he's sneaking by. Now, that's Brad Cathcart there. So Brad Cathcart, McConnell managed to catch up to him. Is this going to be detrimental for him in the pursuit of Joshua Wilkie? We're going to have to take a quick look. Whereabouts is Wilkie? I believe Wilkie has left the pits. We should see him very, very shortly.
Ooh, Wilkie had a long run down pit lane despite having a short pit stop, only 13.9 second stop for the Canadian. He's going to be exiting out in front of McConnell. So well done to jump ahead and grow that gap between himself and McConnell in the 62 car. However, Wilkie may have been able to come out with a bigger lead if he had a slightly shorter run down pit lane. Even with a 13.9 second pit stop, spent 47.3 seconds down pit lane. Lynn and Barry have come in at the same time. It's going to be a battle between these two. Lynn, the driver originally from China who relocated to the Great Lakes region, I believe around Detroit. He's a pretty quick driver for sure. Barry, meanwhile, the driver from the UK, always fast, and pretty much regardless of what you put him in, whether it be an SR10 or whether it be a Formula Ford, he is fast, been fast ever since he joined this series. Going to try and snag his second victory on the season. Both of them hit their marks. We're riding on board with Lynn at the front of pit lane. Barry right behind. Is Barry going to have the good run out of the pits? Is he going to jump in front of the Yanshi Lynn in the number 30? Will it be the 100 or will it be the 30? Close. They come out at the same time. That was pretty much in sync between those two. It should be said that Barry spent much shorter of a time down in his pit stall, 0.6 of a second between those two. And in terms of their pit lane time, it was practically identical. 44.53 for Yanshi Lin and 44.57 for James Barry. It was 0.04 of a second between those two in terms of how long they spent down pit lane. But Barry not being able to jump, I think Barry at this point in time, he is going to be bending the floor pan in that Formula Ford to try and snag the victory.
Oh, he's definitely going to be smashing on that gas pedal pretty hard, you know. At this point, saving fuel, it may have done him so well, but Wanji Lin has still managed to maintain the lead. You know, the time for being conservative has been and gone. Now is the point where he needs to start battling, start applying pressure to the number 30 car. But again, do you want to be in the lead right now, or do you want to try and save it for the end of the race? I mean, obviously passing here, you know, it's not as easily done as we'd hope, you know. There is still a challenge in doing that, but do you make the strategic pass? Is there a certain corner where you're going to go, okay, I need to be past him here so that way I can defend for the rest of the lap? Is it going to be a last corner maneuver? We're going to have to wait and see, as it looks like Jorge Gonzaga and Kevin Adrian are also going to be going back at it again. They're just 2 or 3 tenths of a second between them right now. These guys going at it for pretty much the entire race so far.
Gonzaga has had a hard-fought day thus far. Adrian has as well. So the driver's running a P8 and P9 at this point. Looking to fight between now and the checkered flag. Gonzaga remaining in the same spot that he has ever since the very beginning of the race. Adrian, meanwhile, up 2 spots from where he started. Should be noted, talking about the hard charger. It's a pretty close fight in that as well. Carlos Navarro, the sponsor of this broadcast today on SMB. He's currently the hard charger up 8 spots from where he started. However, Brad Cathcart right in front. He is up 7. And Josh Justice running inside the top 10 right now. He's up 7 as well. So we could see a small little change in the lead in terms of the hard charger. I don't think Brad Cathcart will, because he has about a 12-second gap to himself. And Jeff Jacobson running a little bit farther up the road. Justice, meanwhile, he has a big hill to climb if he wants to gain out on a spot. We'll probably hope for some sort of incident for those drivers to gain some time. However, if they did gain some time and Justice was the one gaining a spot, the other drivers would gain a spot as well. So that probably wouldn't work out too well for Justice. But right now we got the fight between Lynn and Barry. These two drivers covered by barely any air, heading their way through the 10 and 11 chicane right now. Only 0.2 of a second between the two of them. And you got some traffic a little bit farther up the road. That, I believe, is Jason Grider behind the wheel of the 552 car. That is going to be a wrench thrown in the works for both of these drivers. Whoever gets through the lap traffic towards the end of this race without a lot of skin taken off of their back, they're going to be the one taking the checkered flag. We only have 4.5 minutes left on the clock at this point, Zippy. So I'm curious, who is going to be the one that takes the victory with still only a quarter of a second between the two of them?
Well, it really could go any way right now. As you see there, Barry trying to put a nose up the inside. Lynn is absolutely driving the wheels off that car at this point. And I got to say, well played there by Grider. Very quick to get out the way of this lead car battle. And it's certainly starting to get spicy. Lynn using as much of the track as he can. Barry, looks like Barry's put a nose in up on the inside. Is he going to get it done? These guys side by side, neck and neck. As they go down over the hill, Barry's there on the outside. Lynn manages to keep his nose there on the inside. He's got a little bit of a better exit, and Barry not yet able to get it done. Ooh.
I think these two are going to be trading blows from now all the way until the checkered flag. Best lap times wise, they're pretty evenly matched. In terms of the way these race cars are driving, they're pretty evenly matched. In terms of the time they spent down pit lane, they're evenly matched. There is nothing separating these two. Even though we have 36.5 minutes on the clock, these two still separated by less than 0.2 of a second. Barry closing, hanging his way through turn 11. They're going to be side by side, heading off into 12. Battle last late breakers, heading into the quick chicane. Barry on the outside line, sweeping around the outside. Got the inside line through turn number 13, and contact is made between the two of them. And Barry gets spun around. Lynn got a piece of that. I'm curious if there's any damage on the number 30 car. He is slowing. I'm curious if there's a show of good sportsmanship or if there's some damage on that car. And look at Jason Grider nearly getting
they're going back at it.
Of Lynn. That was some sportsmanship. Well done from Yanshi Lin. That was pretty much doomed, it must be said.
Oh, Grider in the background.
12 and 13. Oh, and spinning in the background, that is Grider with a smoke show. So trying to steal the limelight here towards the end of this race. That scared the daylight out of the two of us. But Grider spinning out of P20. Lynn and Barry at this point, though. There is nothing between the two of them. Take two this time around. I was going to say about a lap ago, but with how hard they were going side by side, that it was going to end in tears at some point. It did, but Lynn, credit where credit's due, playing the sportsman, but Barry trying to get the move done down the inside off into turn number 5. Deja vu what happened last time by, but the roles reverse with Barry on the inside line now. They're still going to be side by side coming out of the corner, careening their way down into the 6, 7, 8, and 9 chicane. Barry going to be unsuccessful in his attempt to get past Yanshi Lin. Yanshi had the inside line, heading off into turn number 7, so he's going to hold on to the lead. They're coming to the white flag next time by, unless I'm very much mistaken, Zippy. This fight is still going to be hot, hot, hot.
Oh, it's definitely the free spice counter on the menu right now, and these guys are certainly going to deliver. Don't get me wrong, I've got to say, Wanji Lin, absolutely fantastic sportsmanship. I mean, even as they got into this fight, I was thinking about that, and it was great to see a demonstration of that. These guys, despite being at the front, choosing to keep things civil and, you know, keep things fun, and I've got to say, it's absolutely fantastic. A lot of leagues, you wouldn't see that. Myself, I don't know if I'd have done it. I'd like to think I would, but you know what? We all want to win as well. We are racing drivers, so I'll say that on the sim at least. But some of these guys, oh, here we go. Barry is at it again. The Bumblebee nose of that F1600 looks like it's about to make a sting. Wang Lin doing everything he can. He may indeed need a little bit of cream if that car gets any closer.
I think this is going to be a hard-fought show all the way to the checkered flag. We're on the white flag, so it's one more time around from the second race of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors season here for Season 4 of 2024. And look at that, Barry trying to wheel the inside of Yanqi Lin in that number 100 car. Not close enough. Heading out of turn number 5, there's still going to be line astern coming into the 7, 8, and 9 chicane for the final time. One of the most challenging corners through this lap. You want to be picture perfect heading through there. Gotta say, Yanqi Lin ran a little bit wide. Very lucky to get away with that without having to serve a slow down penalty, because in these races, that could be a game changer. But Barry, he's going to be in the draft coming through the 10 and 11 chicane for the final time onto the back flat out blast before turn 12. Is it going to be deja vu from what we saw a few laps ago? Is Barry going to go for the move? He's going to back out of it. Not going to try and go for it the second time of asking, but Barry at this point, he has the upper hand. Is he going to try and get that move done on Yanqi Lin? Lin running a little bit wide coming at turn 13, getting a clip of the grass coming out of the corner, but Barry at this point mega sideways through turn 15. That draft may have just sealed his fate. Coming around the final corner, Yanqi Lin behind the wheel of the number 30 car. He had to fight like hell to get the job done, and in the end, Yanqi Lin takes the checker flag to win here at Barber Motorsports Park. James Barry in the number 100 car going to finish right behind in P2, and those two gave us one hell of a fight when everything was said and done. Daniel Tuss with probably the quietest show from anybody up and down the grid.
Oh, here we go, at the line.
In third. Ooh, Green and Monty, they were close at the line. Green ends up finishing in fifth, about 3/10 of a second back. Would not have been the first photo finish that Green has been involved in so far this season, but our hearts are pumping and our adrenaline is pulsing through our veins after a hard-fought fight between Lin and Barry. Well done to the two of them for putting on a fantastic fight over the 40 minutes of racing action that we just saw this afternoon.
Well, it does look like we've got one more fight still happening on the track. It's between Bill Walker and Carlos Navarro. These guys certainly not yet seen the checkered, and it looks like, well, I say that, it looks like Bill Walker's going to get a little bit of a run there on Navarro.
Ooh, is he going to be close enough to get the move done? He's going to go for a spin. Navarro spinning in the second to last corner, and that's going to cost him P16. Bill Walker going to slip by. Unfortunate for the driver, making this broadcast possible here on SMB. Put on a smoke show, and I think with that maneuver that we just saw, that gives the Hard Charger Award. It's actually a tie now between Josh Justice, who ends up finishing in 10th, and Brad Cathcart, who ends up finishing in 7th. If that spin didn't happen for Carlos Navarro, that near spin, it should be said, that would have been a three-way tie for the Hard Charger Award when everything is said and done from this race. So well done from Justice, a Spec Racer 4 driver in real life who we'll probably be seeing more of later on this afternoon. And also the driver of the 905, Brad Cathcart, the Australian, putting on a good show up at 7 spots when everything is said and done. But as we attempt to catch our breath after a hard-fought day of racing action here at Barber Motorsports Park, going to try and load up the results. And there it is. When everything is said and done, Yanqi Lin, the driver of the number 30 car, takes it over James Berry in P2, and Daniel Tuff's going to run at your podium in third. Jorg Mani in the 925 car finishes this race in fourth. The top-running Masters driver when everything is said and done. Jason Green, a driver who always runs at the north end of the field in these races, going to finish behind him P5. Joshua Wilkie, our very own SMB colleague, going to be finishing this race in sixth. Top running of the Spec 2 drivers. Michael McConnell going to finish in 7th, Kevin Adrian in 8th, Jorge Gonzaga in 9th, and Joshua Justice, one of the Hard Chargers, going to round out your top 10.
There we go. Unmute the mic, ladies and gentlemen. As we have a look at 11th place, we've got Stevie Ray there for Ray Esports Racing. Again, be sure to catch the racing line on Tuesday night. 12th, Andrew Love for the S2s. Jeff Jacobson, he got caught up in that incident earlier there. He was 13th with Brad Cathcart in 14th. Jim Brewster, again, he got caught up in that as well in 15th. Bill Walker takes 16th, getting that pass on Carlos Navarro right near the end with Russell Telka there in 18th as we continue down the order. Dana Bowser's 19th with Jason Grider. Definitely not the race he had in mind today in 20th. And then I see a few casualties, you could say. Trenton Kramer's there in 21st, and Matthew Merciez in 22nd, and then the Tiller brothers there, for Tiller and Nick Tiller. Now, for Tiller, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check him out. Certainly, if you're in the Discord, he does post up links to where he's racing in real life, driving a Formula V. Some great racing action as well. No, it didn't go quite for him this weekend, but last weekend, a much better result. But I do understand we've been able to catch up there with Jörg Manny. Jörg, it's great to see you in here. I understand you're going to have an interview there with Mr. Ron Maunz.
Yeah, we got Jörg waiting here in the interview waiting area. Jörg, a hard-fought show from you today here at Barber. Talk us through it.
What should I say? It almost started as usual, but he moved into my line and braked. I couldn't do anything anymore, so I had to catch up again. I did. Definitely had the pace to keep up with the leaders, actually, but at the end, it's fine. I underfueled a little bit, started to stutter just when I entered the finish line. That was actually good and lucky for me.
Well, it's definitely a very lucky escape at the beginning, and when everything is said and done with the strategy that you employed, you end up taking the victory in the Masters category. Fantastic way to kick off the season from you. And, oh boy, I think my spectator just sneezed. Hopefully that thing got picked up on the microphone. In 1 week's time, that was...
We heard you. It's all right, carry on.
You need a cough drop? Okay. Okay, let me... Here's some cough drops. There we go. So Jörg, next time out, the series is going to be rocking up to Lime Rock Park, running on the classic layout. So how do you think that race is going to be for you in 1 week's time?
I don't know. Let's be surprised.
Oh boy,
no clue about
surprises indeed. Oh,
it's going to end different than you think, actually.
I'm not going to ask you about the SRF race coming up later on today because as much as hilarity ensued, I'm not sure with the new boss here in the commentary booth we would be able to get away with that.
You're
but
fine. Keep
nevertheless,
going.
Okay, so Caldwell Park later on today.
Whoa. Okay.
Cadwell
Park. Cadwell Park.
Cadwell Park. Okay.
Cadwell.
It's literally my home track.
Pronunciation biting me there.
Yeah, it's English. It's English. Catwell.
all right.
Alrighty, so gonna be heading there. Also, that's gonna be the not this upcoming race for the Formula Fords, but the race after that. What are your thoughts on Cadwell Park?
I don't own it, so I will not join the race. I didn't buy it this week, so I'm not gonna do this race. I have to get up very early tomorrow morning, so I can't do that race today.
Alrighty, there we go, Jörg Manny. I don't necessarily blame you. I have not bought that Trek yet myself. But nevertheless, Jörg, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you a lot, guys, and good start for you, Zippy.
Thank you very much, Jörg. Don't get me wrong, you've not watched it back yet, but I definitely appreciate the vote. Actually, on that subject, I got to say the Weekend Warriors have been incredibly welcoming and very patient as well with my learning curve, so I do appreciate that, Jörg. And again, congratulations on the S2 Masters win. There you go, good example.
I'm too old for S2, so
yeah. Oh no, you're just seasoned, sir. Seasoned. You're like a steak.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
you wouldn't want a bland steak. You would want something with a little bit of seasoning to it.
Well grown, I would say.
Yeah, well grown. There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jörg Manny. Now, Ron, who should we take next? I mean, I kind of want to get in James Barry and Wan Lin at the same time. I think that could be good fun. Are you up for that?
Yeah, we could do that. I may need to get my bag of cough drops back, so if you want to handle this, that's all right. Me.
So just give me 1 second here. I'm trying to multitask. What could go wrong? Okay, so we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. So we got James Barry and Wan Lin here in the booth, and I got to say, you guys had a absolutely fantastic battle. James, I'm going to start the questions with you there, sir. Tell us, what was your tactics, going through that race? I mean, you were sat right behind Wanji. What was going through your mind at that point?
My mind was I'm going to be maybe 5 seconds in the lead after the pit stops because I was fuel saving so much. Turns out Yuanchi was saving just as much as I was without even trying. So I was not expecting to have that shootout at the end. I was thinking, it's a shame it'll be a boring race like this. And turns out it was a super thrilling race at the end, as you saw.
Well, I got to say, you guys in the pit time were literally identical. Like literally, there was nothing in it. Absolutely incredible. Wanshi, like, tell us a little bit as well. Like, you've got such great reputation for saving fuel, but when you guys did have that tangle and you lifted off, I just want to recognize as well, that's fantastic sportsmanship, and it's great to see that. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like having James Barry behind you for the majority of the race, and then at the end as well. Sorry, James.
This is definitely a very tough track to just drive at. I mean, there's a lot of high-speed corners, and you have a very light car with no downforce. You just have to be very precise on weight transition. Having James in my gearbox the entire time really put a lot of pressure on me. So it really forced me to be pixel perfect.
Well, it definitely was a fun race, but before we let you go, we'll start with James on this one. James, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Shout out everyone in the league, everyone who makes it what it is. And yeah, it's going to be a long season ahead, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been super fun these first 2 races. So yeah, shout out just everyone, really.
Well, I do hear as well that you're pretty handy in a Radical SR10, and there is going to be some news coming to SMB regarding that very shortly. Our sister channel, Pit Row Productions, they're involved with Britannia Esports and that, but that's more for the Radical side. We'll get to that on another part of the show. But Wanshi, before we let you go as well, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, thank you for broadcasting this race, and thanks Steve for hosting. And thank James for putting up a good race. You know, it's you don't get a lot of exciting racing at this circuit.
Well,
yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a pleasure.
Definitely a great race between these two. But ladies and gentlemen, that was James Barry and Wanshi Lin. Absolutely fantastic. And before we end the show, we are going to go and catch up with Joshua Wilkie as well. Let's see if I can drag him down here. I'm going to try to anyway. Let's make this thing bigger so I can move him. There we go. Perfect. Ron, I believe you're back. Have a chat with our SMB cohort, Mr. Joshua Wilkie.
And I'll have a chat with my co-host on the Formula V Weekend Warriors, Josh. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth. A hard-fought afternoon from your perspective here at Barber, but you take the S2 victory when everything is said and done. Talk us through it.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy race. Don't really know this track very well. I actually stayed up till like 3:30 in the morning last night just practicing, got a couple hours in and actually learned the track last night. Got a little more practice in this morning and was setting the fastest times that I've ever done here by the time qualifying rolled around. So it was a bit of a learning experience out there again. I felt like I had some pace. I was dicing it up with the big boys, with Jason and Jorg and stuff like that too, and they just had a bit of pace. If I was to try to keep in front of them, I probably would have lost it. I was right on the ragged edge there, but I learned a whole bunch today and it was super fun.
Well, it definitely looked fun from our perspective. Driving this old-school-ish car around this old-school-ish track has to be really fun. So heading into, oh god, I forget where we're racing in 1 week's time. Heading into the track that we're racing at in 1 week's time, how do you think that race is going to be at whatever track it may be? There we go. It's Lime Rock Park, so another old school track with these cars.
Lime Rock, yeah, okay. So I mean, Lime Rock is 40 minutes around Lime Rock. It can be a bit punishing, to be honest. It's a pretty small track. It's lots of right-hand turns. I haven't been on Lime Rock in a while either, so yeah, very similar to this one in some ways. So looking forward to it, I guess. We'll see how it goes. I'd really like to try to get an overall podium here one of these days, so that's kind of what I'm gunning for.
I mean, that would be a fantastic track to do it as well. And thank you very much, Daniel and the production hauler, for pulling up the upcoming broadcast graphics. I could recollect my brain. My phone is a little bit out of touch with my notes. I was not able to grab them at that point. But yeah, Josh, before we let you go and celebrate the victory in Spec 2 and also get ready for the SRF race later on today, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, it's big thanks to my wife, Chloe, who's watching right now, and my parents and stuff, too, who might be out there watching. Obviously, you guys, Ron and Daniel, you guys kill it in the booth every weekend. And
we kill something.
Looking forward to next week in the Vs as well. We had a great V race, so really looking forward to the next V race as well with Ron there. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Oh, actually,
well, we definitely kill something. I nearly killed my friend throwing a full bag of Hall's cough drops at them a couple of minutes ago, so I may end up getting my butt whooped when everything is said and done. But Josh, well done on the Spec 2 victory, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the SRFs later, and happy to have you back in the commentary booth for the Formula Vs this Saturday. Thanks for joining us, man.
Right on. I'm having a blast commentating and stuff, boys, and great job again. Take care.
Hell yeah, man. That is Josh Wilkie. And you can see the rest of the upcoming broadcasts that we have coming up here on SMB. Daniel, now it's your company, so I think you could do the upcoming broadcast plugs.
Oh, okay. So this afternoon in... hang on, let me do some quick Zippy maths. In just under an hour, we're going to be in the Spec Racer Fords for the Weekend Warriors at the best track on the planet. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it is literally the track an hour from where I grew up. It's in Lincolnshire, UK. Don't get me wrong, Lincolnshire, we don't have that much to brag about. We've got pork pies and sausages, but so famous, nobody here really actually cares. I get it, you know, but Cadwell Park, certainly more designed for the motorcycles and stuff like that, but I think we're going to see some very interesting, very close racing, especially in the later part of that track as well. That's Cadwell Park for the Weekend Warriors. As we head over a bit later this evening, it's going to be at 8:10 Eastern. We're going to have the XSLR, that's Cross Series League Racing, is going to be in the Beetle Lights at Indianapolis. Now, I do believe Adam Thompson will be back for that, and I just couldn't help but think when Josh said we were killing it in the booth, I think about when Adam had to shoot a rabbit during a stream, and then he's recently found a pigeon as well. Very, very, very colourful producer is Adam Thompson. Great man as well.
SMB brought to you by PETA.
Yeah. As we have a look, and then we go on Saturday. That's next week. We'll be here for the Formula Bs. Well, that means you're going to get the delight of Ron Maunz and definitely a much more experienced director. You'll have Joshua Wilkie back running that show, ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday. About 3:20 Eastern, it's going to be the Formula Bs at Mid-Ohio. I'm hearing good things in the chat about that track as well. Sunday, Formula Fords, we're going to be back at Lime Rock Park. Now, I do know Michelle Lynn will be particularly handy around there. She's driven that in real life. That's going to be certainly a fun one to watch. Hopefully, Michelle can get out to that one. And then the Spec Racer Fords, we're going to be there at Laguna Seca. So definitely a fun schedule planned. But I've got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure. And again, a little bit of a learning experience for me. I do apologize. Last week, I wasn't here. I was actually commentating some real life racing. It's not going to happen every week, but certainly a lot of fun. It was the 50th anniversary of Atlantic Motorsport Park, and I got to be honest, when the footage of that comes out, I will be sharing it on the channel, and that's for you guys to see it and certainly have a look. I got to do a grid walk very similar to Martin Brundle, but without being quite as snazzy, ladies and gentlemen. But it's been an absolute pleasure. So much fun. Ron, any closing thoughts before we bring this one here to an end?
I think you touched on just about everything. This was a fantastic way to kick this season off. Navarro 1 week ago was interesting. This race was exciting. We've got a fantastic schedule of races here from the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors course, Lime Rock in 1 week's time, Cadwell Park, Hungaro Ring, running on the Charlotte Roval on October the 20th, Road America, Brands Hatch running on the Indy layout, Okayama, Suzuka, Rudskogen, Zandvoort, and Tsukuba to bring this season to a close, which runs from now all the way through until the first week of December. And of course, all the Weekend Warriors action going to be here exclusively on SMB. It's a fantastic upcoming series of races that we have, a fantastic thing going on here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And for all you viewers tuning in and the wonderful and very colorful chat that we've had throughout this broadcast, we thank you all for tuning in to this broadcast and hope you can stay tuned to hear Daniel and Randall McGrew on the call for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors coming up in about an hour's time. But as for today, with the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Daniel Zippy Salmon working on the cameras and also working the comms here alongside me in the commentary booth, pulling double duty on this broadcast today on SMB, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock hour, whatever it may be, and we hope to see you for the Spec Racer Fords later on this afternoon. Take care, everybody.
I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes.
That was the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and you need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
first time on slow motion broadcasting with the FF Weekend Warriors. We're at Sebring this weekend. It's going to be a blast. I saw a little bit of rain here in the practice session, but we'll get to that here in 1 second. My name is Adam Thompson. I'm joined in the booth by Randall McGrew.
These three going right at it. We see you're getting really, really squirrely. There.
Oh, no!
Some contact. Oh, no. Jurg and Antonio, the two Masters leaders, both with issues and now dropping down the order.
There's a dicing through the curbs. Our lead two. As that's Instaman just slossing it up the inside through McIntyre there. Beautifully done by the Icelandic driver as there's a big incident happened behind somewhere. Gonzaga losing a lot of places back.
Almost touching at that point. They're around there heading into the closing stages of the track. Not quite there yet. Heading through what I'm calling the horseshoe, but let's not get into my drawing skills at this point. Nothing but clear track ahead of them at this point, so no one should be able to interfere in that battle. Side by side, nearly had contact there. That's going to put Kabanka on the inside for this next hairpin. This could be what decides it, and he's gone right on the outside, actually trying to cover off the car. I do wonder if Barry is going to be close enough to potentially slipstream. They've got 2 corners left to go. This is penultimate one now. Barry right up close, 0.3 of a second. I'm not sure it's going to be close enough, 0.2 of a second. He's got to keep his foot on that loud pedal. Catches a little bit of a curve, but has Kabanka done it? Barry going to the inside, and Kabanka gets it.